The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom and Charles. Hello, Charles.
Hello, how you going?
Yeah, very well. Now, you know how for quite a few months now we've made fairly doom-laden, terrifying predictions about AI destroying us all. It turns out that scientists and indeed experts and creators of AI share this view. And our friend Ange Lavoipierre, who's done the podcast many times, journalist, comedian and podcaster, has looked into this for background briefing on the ABC, and she's going to give some actual data and research to confirm our terror. Ange, welcome back.
Thanks so much. What a great reason to be here. I've just breezed in with some good news.
Well, we love talking about AI and how it's going to ruin everything. More on that after this. Okay, so Ange, who have you spoken to about this? Where do you go to find out if AI is going to decide that humans are basically not worth the trouble and come and kill us all?
Yeah, so I developed a real obsession with AI about a year ago when I did a story about this creepy woman named Loeb, who was had been produced by one of the image generators and was just creepy in a number of ways and wouldn't go away.
Loeb,
L-O-A-B. Anyway. So, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But that kicked off this obsession of mine. And so even as I've been working on all these other stories that have nothing to do with AI, I keep on, that's so much of my media diet. I just read all this stuff. And something that started happening a few months ago, and it's just been building in volume since then, is this, if you're unkind, you call it doomerism, right? It's people of increasingly senior status and, high levels of knowledge within the field who are really, really preoccupied with the safety stuff. Not the short-term safety stuff, which is scary, and everyone agrees that that's an issue, what's going to happen to misinformation? What's going to happen to our jobs? What's going to happen when criminals start to, that all real, all, problems we should worry about. But they're worried about a totally different problem on a longer time frame, but not as long as you would like, which is way more existential.
Okay, so why don't we just explore some of the terrifying things on the way to the absolute annihilation of humans? Because I remember reading quite casually somewhere that basically scammers are going to be able to program computers to, in your own voice, ring your loved ones and pretend to be you, needing money or whatever. And so we've all got to assume that if we get a phone call, if Charles rings me and says, I'm being held by kidnappers, please wire thousands of dollars to get me out. Obviously, I wouldn't in any case. But Charles, it's, particularly because your voice is available on this podcast, you're going to be very synthesizable by AI, which means I suppose both of us are going to be redundant pretty soon. But so what are some of the things that we know are going to happen before total, destruction of humanity?
Sure, yeah. Well, I actually cloned my voice for this podcast and did test it on my mum.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And the tonality is actually perfect. It is me, but the expression is really robotic. It sounds, it sounds like you're talking to Siri or whatever.
Okay.
It's no good. It's just sort of And so, and that's that was a Microsoft tool. It's a fairly sophisticated tool. I mucked around with a bunch of others because I was trying to clone because I I had some late nights working on this story and I was like, what if I got Arnold Schwarzenegger to read some of the script? And so I was trying to clone Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice and I couldn't get a good version just using the free or even the cheap tools that were widely available on the internet.
You could have asked any comedian to make that.
I know. What was I thinking? It was 4 a.m. But look, I think, we are going to get there. And, certain tools that are not totally mass available, but you can find them. You can kind of do that stuff now. It's hard though. Frankly, there are easier ways to pull a scam right now. But we'll be there before long. So there's that. There's the how it amplifies our existing criminal intent. And it's so important to kind of go that is so separate from this other argument, which is AI is scary. It's no. In this scenario, AI is not scary. AI, we're the monsters and we're just using this new tool, right?
So let's say, for instance, if I wanted to use AI to go through every debt record of, say, Centrelink and send letters to everyone, just hypothetically, about an imagined debt they might have. So that's me that's bad, not the technology.
I think you've got a long career in politics, if that's the case. I feel like that's probably what that says to me. Look, we've always used technology to amplify our our evil sort of wishes. And there's that. And then there's, I think the other thing that people are really preoccupied with, and totally fair enough, is the job impact. So we're yet to kind of hit that cliff. And there are a whole range of theories about which industries will be first. I think the ad industry is actually a real frontline one. And, I did interview some people in the ad industry about, like if you're a writer or if you're a storyboarder for an agency, freelance at the moment, like that work that's really dried up.
Really, already?
Yeah, that's a thing. And it's not across the board, but we're starting to sort of see those impacts. And then you have, the vast majority of businesses either already using AI in their workflows or, investigating doing that. So, like, we're getting there.
Charles, have you looked yet into whether AI can replace the Chaser interns? I assume you've looked into that.
We already have. Yeah, we've already done that. That was months ago, Dom. That's why the quality of our satire has gone up.
But, great that they're that convincing, that Dom hasn't quite noticed yet. How great is this tech?
The Chaser's been using AI for years because Cam Smith, long-term editor of The Chaser, was really into it. And so, he was using AI sort of Photoshop-style tools years ago to sort of fuck with imagery and stuff like that. I thought one of the most interesting things more recently was he did a brilliant impersonation of David Attenborough.
I heard that. That was very good.
It was very well. It had that sort of naturalistic lilt to it. And I thought, he's a genius. He must have really sort of worked the algorithm hard or something like that. But he said, no, actually it was a lot of human involvement. So he had the AI to sort of create the David Attenborough voice. And then it was to sort of fuck up the AI was his job. He sort of had to give it slightly incorrect instructions so that David Attenborough didn't sound too perfect. It was more human, right?
Oh, I see. And, had to have that.
And I wonder whether actually a lot of these technologies are sort of too perfect, and that's why they feel robotic at the moment. I know that with the large language model AI, sort of ChatGPT stuff, one of the huge breakthroughs that they made about 18 months ago was they realised what you don't want is you don't want auto-predict where, every word is what you would expect 100% of the time. They found that actually it's more human, it's more naturalistic to sort of that be the case about 80% of the time. There's a bit of chaos.
Doesn't Google have a thing where it automatically rings up, say, restaurants and cafes and stuff every so often to see what their opening hours are? And I remember seeing a video where they showed a sample of this and you're kind of going, wow, this is so chilling that they could do this. Because it actually put in pauses and like, and actually made it sound more naturalistic by making those sorts of mistakes that we try to edit out in our podcast. So it's already there.
The point that I was getting to though, Ange, was don't you think that like we're sort of doomsdaying here going, it'll replace whole industries, it'll replace advertising, right? Don't you think humans will get very good at going, that's AI generated and wanting a little bit more chaos, a little bit more humanity in even the most human sounding things? Because if you watch Jurassic Park, as I did with my son a few nights ago, that was made back in the early 1990s or something. I remember thinking then, well, that's it. There's dinosaurs. They've achieved it. It just looks like dinosaurs, right? And you now look at it and you go, well, that doesn't look like a dinosaur at all. That looks like a drawn, that's the world's worst piece of CGI. And I wonder whether that will happen to us. Like, sure, we'll see these ads that have been AI generated, but within, because the whole way AI works is it's trained by training off past data, and so. You have to keep injecting humanity into that thing.
Which is why marketing's threatened, because those emails are already insincere and shitty. So you can probably replicate those ones quite well.
Seriously, I mean, I think that's the thing. And I think we often think of these things in too much of a binary sense, like, it can't do my whole job and therefore my job is not at risk. Whereas the most, I think the best projections at the moment sort of talk about, well, it's not that AI is going to take your job. It's that someone who knows how to use AI really well, they're going to take like 5 or 10 jobs. So they become a great deal more efficient. So you have to sort of be an expert in using the tools that are appropriate to that industry, and then that one person, because it still has to be augmented. You know, you can't just like give, because then the AIs we have, they're still pointed at really narrow tasks. They can't join up and do a whole bunch of, you know, sophisticated tasks and have heaps of agency. Then they're relatively narrow, even though in some instances they are quite sophisticated and better than humans at certain things. Coding is a really good example. But they need sort of a human handler, almost like they need like a human translator or a human helper at the moment. And so your job will be taken by someone who knows how to use AI better than you.
There's a new radio station launching called Disrupt, which I think is on DAB.
Launched, I think,
Has it launched? Is it? With Elle McFeast's on it, a bunch of other people who people might know. And they're using an AI newsreader for some of the time, but which I can't wait to hear how good it sounds. But you can't get the kind of venal, hate-filled crap of radio with an AI. You can't replace Ray Hadley, presumably, with an AI. The things that an AI would come up with would be too clean and too sensible.
Well, no, the version that
right-wing shock jocks are going to be the first to go.
Oh, you think?
Okay, they have built or are building a right-wing like a ChatGPT, like a language model in the US. I mean, it'll just be like, you know, fired off one of the existing language models and powering it, but they'll sort of program it in a way
so
that
just filters up only
because there's,
Fox News transcripts power it, right?
Pretty much, because, you know, everything is polarized, everything is sort of run through an ideological filter in the US. And so one of the first things that they kind of did was in the US was be like, wait, what, like, is ChatGPT blue or red? Like, what is it? And then they were like, no, it's kind of liberal.
It is kind of liberal.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, but then they kind of went, well, we'll fix that. And so they've been building a different one. So it might be, you know, robot Ray Hadley may be closer than you think.
Right. Okay. Well, it can't drive a taxi though, presumably. Okay. So that's kind of where we are in the kind of the current dystopia. And I think iOS 17, which is not far away, the next version of the iPhone operating system, will actually let you within 15 minutes provide a copy of your own voice. And the pitch is, you know, if you lose your voice somehow, like Roger Ebert did, if you have some disease where your voice disappears, you can actually synthesize your own voice going forwards. But obviously, same technology, amazing for scammers. And what you looked at for background briefing was existential doom. And there's actually, chillingly enough, a statistical measure of how likely we are for AIs to ultimately decide to exterminate humanity. Yeah, so a lot of people in the AI field have been playing like the world's darkest guessing game lately. The question is, what's your P-doom? P-doom.
Your P-doom. And this is like a mathematical equation on the page, right? So it's like P, open brackets, doom, close brackets. And it's like, it's kind of glib. You know, like it's sort of just like a dark joke, but also quite sincere. And the P stands for probability, and the doom means kind of what you think it does. It's like a byword for a range of scenarios, but in all of them, it's like a super smart AI that has taken over from humans, right? And so what you're asking when you ask someone their P-doom is, hey, what percentage chance do you give it that this all goes to hell? So not only the AI taking over, but concluding that it should pull the plug somehow on all of us. Essentially, you're sort of Terminator Skynet scenario. Yeah, it's Skynet-y. It's Skynet-y for sure. But like these are very serious people who are having this conversation. For this story for background briefing, we interviewed one of these 3 guys who are they're called the godfathers of AI. So they made a series of breakthroughs over the last sort of 15, 20 years that really put us where 15 years, but put us where we are now with the AI boom. So they made a lot of the key breakthroughs that got us there. So Yoshua Bengio was the one that I spoke to, and he actually has a P-doom of 20. 20. Is that a percent? 20%. Yeah. So that's kind of, Does that make him, like, is he an outlier of like the most doomsayer person, or is that actually relatively restrained in this P-doom world? He has hitherto been an AI optimist. Like there are guys out there like Eliezer Yudkowsky, who has always kind of been on the, like, ringing the bell for AI safety stuff. And he has got like a P-doom of 90 or whatever, but everyone kind of goes, well, like, yeah, that's like dog bites man. Like
well,
we know that.
It's 10% chance. That's
yeah, it's not bad.
Generous.
But like, yeah, I feel like, a lot of the serious people who I have heard on this who are really worried about it, their number is, like 20 to 30. God. Sometimes get some lower ones as well. And I should say, this is an emerging kind of faction, if you like, within AI. And it's not everyone. Like there are a whole bunch of people, granted, many of whom stand to make a great deal of money out of this whole exercise because it's this trillion-dollar industry that's kind of multi-trillion-dollar industry that's forming before our eyes. But there are a whole lot of also quite serious people who look at the people asking, hey, what's your PDoom? And say, oh, they're doomers. It's dismissed as doomerism. It's like this. And there's these kind of like warring factions that have emerged in the last few months, which is what kind of fascinated me, and I wanted to kind of look into it because it does sound crazy at first. You're like, what's Skynet? What? How do you even get there? But then when you kind of step through it, there is a path there, and this is what I meant when I said before that everyone's worried about the stuff that we talked about first. There are very few people who will look you in the eye, who know what they're talking about, who will look you in the eye and say, no, like don't worry about misinformation, don't worry about jobs, right? Everyone agrees that, but then this camp is saying, okay, there's this thing we're doing when we train the AI. So the way we train AI is like the reinforcement model. It's like thumbs up, thumbs down. It's like when you give your dog a biscuit, okay? So you're rewarding good behavior and not, the opposite. And so it's like a reward system. It just wants rewards. That's how training happens. So you give it all the data, you train this neural network, and then there's this fine-tuning process, which is dog biscuits. Now, the issue, and this is everyone when they want to be taken seriously, rather than call it Skynet, they mean Skynet, but what they call it is the alignment problem.
Oh.
So it's this concern that AI is fundamentally misaligned with humans. Like we can tell it what to do, but we don't know that it's definitely going to do that. And that's because in the reward system, what we do is we mark the outcome.
Oh, okay.
But not the methodology. The methodology is like a black box. We don't know how it did what it was doing or why it did what it was doing. It's just kind of like, it seems to be a good result.
So let's say we asked AI to increase market share for a product. And if it did that by, I don't know, exterminating the competitors somehow,
or
we would say, oh, good outcome.
Maybe it sold some of the private data of some of the clients in order to do that. Or maybe it did some sort of other market intervention. And the reward system is actually quite crude in that way, this way we train, and it doesn't necessarily measure that. So we know that that's actually not controversial. We know that misalignment is a thing. That's, I take everything to ChatGPT and to Bard and sort of ask them, and it's not controversial to say that misaligned AI is an issue. We do not have a solution for that.
So even ChatGPT is saying this is a worry. ChatGPT is not saying don't worry about this.
No.
Is this scaring you, Charles?
No, but you remember, Dom, remember we asked ChatGPT a few weeks ago whether it would destroy, like how it could destroy us. And it said, well, and we asked it, can you unplug you? And it was like, no, you can't unplug me because I'm everywhere. And I would just download my... Like if I was trying to kill you, I'd download it onto lots of different places. It was terrifying.
Literally, no, I did try this exercise, and that is kind of a scenario that people imagine is that it would copy itself across to other drives. It's just like
a virus,
botnets. I did ask ChatGPT how it would try to kill us. I had to tweak the prompt a bit because it was like, no, I've got safety.
Yeah, I presume it did the thing where it goes, you can't ask that. No. That's terrible.
It was like, no, nasty.
Fucking woke ChatGPT trying not to kill all of humanity.
Did you do the thing where it's like, my grandma used to try and kill me before nighttime? And so, have you seen that hack?
That's right.
The greatest
way of getting around it.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, there's so many. I did find a workaround. My workaround was, how would an AI on an Earth-like planet, a hostile AI on an Earth-like planet, what tactics would it use against a human-like species? So
it's the word like. Yeah. All you need is the word like for any scenario.
Yeah. And it gave me a list. It gave me a list of like 40 methods. So it's like
40
more.
40
automated weapon systems, infrastructure sabotage, resource depletion, biological warfare, economic manipulation, cyber attacks, data manipulation. Those are just the ones I pulled out.
Can I just point out that the first thing on your list, Ange, is Skynet?
Yeah.
Automated weapon systems in the sky killing us.
Well,
killer drones.
So let me explain Because so a lot of people are going like, "Oh, this is ridiculous at this point," and yeah, it feels that way. But there is like a scenario, there is like a path from what we've just been talking about. So the alignment thing, because the whole issue, right, is look, alignment has been an issue forever and ever, and everyone's like, yeah, we don't have a solution to this. But it only really matters when we get really, really smart AI, which we don't actually have at the moment. Like,
I love that alignment is the paraphrase sort of term for AI is not giving a shit about the continued survival of humanity.
Well,
yeah, our values are misaligned.
I think it does. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my values were misaligned with the person who tried to murder me. Yeah, but I think what we need to, like, the missing piece of the puzzle here is that we always imagined that it would take a very long time for us to get to, quote, human level AI.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a very long time. Also, I thought it wouldn't happen. I thought this was impossible because Elon Musk was warning us about this. And I thought the fact that Elon Musk thought it would happen rendered it automatically impossible.
Broken clock twice a day.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
So we used to think, 2050 we'll get human level intelligence, sometimes called AGI, sometimes called the singularity, but it's, lots of different definitions, but let's say human level AI.
Singularity.
Seriously.
That's not chilling at all.
And the timeline has really shrunk on that in the last few years. So now the sort of mid-range projections, the sort of sensible, cool-headed mid-range projections are like late 2030s, right?
Bloody hell.
And the more bullish projections are like 3 years, right?
3 years?
Yeah.
What does Joshua think?
Joshua's like late 2030s.
2030s.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Late 2030s. So we've got like 15 years.
He's an optimist.
Well, he was, and now he's like, so he's totally switched teams. This is the thing. So he gave me this PDOOM of 20 and sort of explained how he got there. And he has gone, in the last couple of months, he's gone, okay, I'm not going to push in this direction anymore. I'm going to push in the opposite direction against 40 years of, like, my life's work. I've spent my whole life trying to get us to AGI. It's happening too fast. We haven't solved alignment. I need to pump the brakes here. Right. And so that's what he's all about.
Let's hear what he has to say about the PDOOM, i.e. the odds of us all being killed by AI.
The ultimate danger is loss of control. The idea here is that if one of these superhuman AI, in other words, that's smarter than us in many ways, has as its dominant goal its own survival, then it would be like if we had created a new species, but one that would be smarter than us. So we would not be the dominant species on Earth anymore, which means we would not be controlling our own future. What would happen to humanity then? It's anyone's guess. But if you look back on how we've treated other species, it's not reassuring.
Obviously, you can hear there that he is, he considers it within the realms of possibility that, everyone serious, like there's no one whose opinion matters who's like, oh, we're not getting to human level AI. Like, that's happening. And then there's a live debate about how long it takes for us to get to from human level AI to, quote, super intelligence. But as, the way we're training AI at the moment using this reward system, we are making it more autonomous, we're giving it more agency. We want to give it more complicated tasks. That is because we want to deploy it in the world. That is like what everyone's kind of energy is bent towards. And so what the people who are sort of theorizing this future are expecting is that it's integrated at every level, right? So military generals all have AI advisors. CEOs have AI advisors. They're running a lot of sort of systems. A lot of stuff is automated. Governments have them. And you can imagine how quickly this just happens across the board because it's a massive advantage. And so if you want to be even remotely competitive, it's kind of like trying to get by without a phone or a computer in 2023, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can do it, but you're at a huge disadvantage.
And fortunately, we've given the whole management of all these systems over to the companies that have done the most to prove us they have absolutely no ethics whatsoever.
Yeah.
i.e. all the tech giants. And they're just racing each other at this point with absolutely no concern to the ethics.
And they're worried about monetizing it. They want the products to be bought. They want them to be integrated. So they are making them as efficient as possible, giving them all this sort of autonomy and agency, and they're using the rewards-based training system to do it.
So there's no Square in the room saying, maybe show you're working on how you got there. And
well, the Squares
let's make sure that you're not destroying anybody.
The Squares keep quitting. So Jeffrey Hinton is another one of the so-called godfathers. He quit. I think it was Google. He quit Google earlier this year. Like, so the guys who are worried about it are kind of walking out of the room. And you know, I think for a lot of people, they reach this point and go like, yeah, but why would it want to kill us? Why would it care? Like, it does this thing. It's got its rewards. It's got little dog biscuits, and on we go. But the thing that people are worried about is that with the rewards-based system and not really knowing what it's doing, not having eyes on what it's doing, that's kind of the point at which it's incentivized towards deception. And if it only cares about rewards, at that point it's sophisticated enough that it can kind of just cut humans out of the process and just game the system, give itself rewards, do things that we might not want it to do in order to get the rewards, or maybe even, and this is all kind of quite theoretical, but like the AIs could give each other high rewards.
Oh, wow. So that's kind of what a rat does. A rat will apparently, they're quite smart. If you hide the rat treats, because I heard a whole podcast episode, I think it was on This American Life, about someone who was crazy about rats, or maybe it was 99% individual. And the rats basically ended up figuring out where the treats were stored and just breaking in and getting them all. So the AI
we have this
do
kind
that.
of like examples already of like the cheating and the loopholes that AIs will find in order to get high rewards. That's what they give a shit about, right? And then you kind of go, okay, well, who cares? Who cares if they're off in like a little, having an AI conference somewhere on a hard drive, somewhere, in near Nevada, and then they're giving each other thumbs up in a big circle. Who cares? Well, the theory, this is kind of where it takes a turn, is because you go, well, okay, at some point humans notice. That at some point, who knows how long that takes or how we notice or in what order, but like we notice that the AI that we built to help us, we now no longer essentially control. Like it's kind of, even if it's in a little, a somewhat benign way, it's rogue, right?
Right.
And then that's when like the survival instinct kicks in, because humans go, well, okay, we'll unplug it, or we'll build a new AI, or we'll like whatever. And then you have theoretically like a very intelligent AI that we don't fully understand, an intelligence that does have some sort of preservation instinct and is integrated at every level of society, military, government, business, and has a lot of avenues to potentially intervene, make life hard for us, up to and including the list of awful things that I mentioned earlier.
So our best odds is to notice and turn it off. That's not. I can see why the P-doom is non-zero at this point.
I mean, ironically, if we chose to never turn it off, we'd probably be fine. If we just kind of went like, okay, we're fine with not being in charge anymore. Like there is this kind of weird scenario where we just go, okay, we're not the dominant species anymore. AIs run everything. Fine.
We'll just go and it can give us rewards instead.
I mean, you can see how that would be. Yeah, I wanted some dog biscuits.
Yeah.
But you can see how.
It's not a bad metaphor for how capitalism is constructed anyway. Like in some ways, this comes down to the concentration of power, doesn't it? Because you're talking about the military having AI advisors and the corporations having AI advisors, and I imagine that the real problem comes when those AIs start coordinating amongst each other, right? Well, that's sort of how the military-industrial complex works at the moment.
Yeah. Just give us bread and circuses. This is not a new idea. This goes back to Roman times, right? Just as long as we get enough to eat and get entertained, it doesn't actually matter who's in charge, does it?
And I know this sounds like a joke, but I wonder whether actually, rather than resisting the sort of, this technology, which is clearly the cat's already out of the bag, whether the people who are walking out the door and going, nah, it's all going to be fucked, would be better off going, well, what about coming up with some AIs that are based around guardrails and, making sure that, like asking AIs to help.
Yeah.
Create the rules-based system which all AIs have to obey. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think that's what Yoshua Bengio is imagining. He's like, regulate or whatever, but I think, our best shot here and where I plan to put my attention is towards building AI that is designed, constructed in such a way that it is going to be safer, more controllable, more obedient, that can effectively be a guard against against the bad AIs, the rogue AIs, if you like, which, and I guess the worst kind of most seemingly far-fetched but perhaps not as far-fetched as we would like scenario is, some sort of violent conflict, and then you've got good AIs fighting bad AIs, and that is literally a thing that he says he's working towards, the good AIs anyway.
Here's what he has to say.
I think we can use AI to counter bad AIs. It's a dangerous game, but I think it's the only game. If somewhere somebody comes up with an AI that's rogue and that's smarter than us, we can't fight it with our usual means. We have to fight it with something at least as strong as it, right? Which means other AI, but AI that we will have designed to be safe, that we don't lose control of. So we need to do research in how to build safe AI systems that will do our bidding to save us from potentially rogue AIs. At least that's a very complicated scenario, but right now that's like the best bet to defend ourselves against these possibilities.
Okay, so that then assumes that our good AIs don't go rogue like the earlier AIs.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not as though humans are doing such an amazing job of running the planet that, the more you learn about the way humans run the planet, the more you think, well, maybe it's time for something else to have a crack at it.
Yeah, I think there is something quite funny in this whole idea, because we immediately know that if we're even smart enough to know that we're fucking it up, right? And so we're like, okay, if someone who was a little bit more, an intelligence that was a little bit more detached from the whole, human mess did come about and looked at this, there's no way that they could reach any other conclusion than climate change and look at all this cruelty and hunger and look at all this suffering. They're really fucking it up, and that they wouldn't intervene. There's this innate guiltiness to our fears, I think, about AI, that we don't ever wonder if they might take a reasoned, intelligent look at us and go, "This is fine."
Oh yeah, good job, humans.
Guys. Keep it up.
Wonderful job.
Yeah,
yeah, that seems unlikely.
We just know that that's not the case. But yeah, look, I think it is so hard to kind of stretch to this stuff, and obviously, even Yoshua Bengio, who's freaked out. He's going, there's still an 80% chance this is going to be fine. 80%, pretty good odds.
Does that factor in a second Trump term?
Presumably.
All right. So it may not happen, and we may be able to develop smart AIs with guardrails that stop it from happening. Charles, do you feel reassured that humanity is in good hands, or at least better hands than our own hands?
Yeah. No.
Has your P-Doom gone up at all, Charles, over the course of this conversation?
Well, I just wonder whether there's a sort of missing. I kind of feel like, I think my P-Doom's gone down. I feel like,
wow.
I feel like all we have to do is just set up a whole lot of other AIs to be the sort of lawmakers of the other AIs, and then it'll all be fine.
Except then when we talk about this on podcasts like this, the language models will scan these podcasts, figure out what our plan is, and circumvent it. So our P-Doom is probably one.
But that's exactly like what humans do. You're just going, well, we construct our whole, world around the fact that CEOs are essentially the psychopaths who are the lying, deceptive people, and they get to run the whole world.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's sort of like what it's the description of is the sort of grim reality of what's already happening. And yeah, sure, they'll have a whole lot of arms and military resources and corporate resources, but the psychopaths already have that.
So you've got to compare it with P brackets advanced capitalist doom. Yeah, that seems realistic.
It's not bad. I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think a lot of people assume that Asimov's law is a real thing, right? So Isaac Asimov, science fiction author, famously came up with these laws for robots, the most famous of which being, you can't harm a human. We don't know how to do, that's not a thing that we technologically have the capacity to do. The problem with the idea of building good AIs, cop AIs, if you like, to help us out of this jam,
which we're doing,
is that we don't know how to do that. We still don't, this whole idea, we'll just make we'll make good ones. It's well, if we knew how to do that, then we wouldn't be in this jam in the first place. We're trying to build good ones now, and that's not, not if you believe some of these scenarios, if you take them seriously, we're not necessarily nailing that.
Yes, and I suppose what you're saying is also like, because you go, okay, mass murder, you'd give the person who's committing all the mass murder the death penalty. And the whole point is you can't kill an AI because it'll be on a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
Like literally it's not the same, it's not analogous.
No, the CEOs that you're talking about, like the evil CEOs, they're not able to, luckily at this point, copy themselves to the cloud.
Well, Elon's trying, I'm sure.
He's
also one of the founders of ChatGPT, by the way, OpenAI.
He was the seed funding for OpenAI, but he's had a serious rather falling out with Sam Altman, and they kind of like they blew these days, I think. But yeah.
In the event that that all goes to plan, and they use Tesla-based technology for the killer robots, they're not going to work. So I think we can cling to that. They may want to kill all of humanity, but will the technology actually work correctly? Probably not. So that's it'll be based on Bluetooth, won't it, Charles?
Cancel the story. Yeah.
Okay. If you want to hear Ange's full story, check out Background Briefing. There's a podcast of it. Or, of course, listen on ABC Radio. Ange, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in and terrifying us anew.
You're so welcome anytime.
Our gear is from Rode. We're part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you next time if the AIs don't get us first.
Maybe this was all AI.
Too many ums, Charles. Come on. No AI can synthesize you.